last year was a whirlwind for us, for all of us, not just as an institution, but our program. But I think, if anything, we kind of found out the differences of playing in this league compared to the Big East. Every league is always going to be competitive, no matter whether it's the best conference in the country or the worst conference in the country. What's different is the styles. And what we saw were a lot of similarities in the MAC amongst many of the teams, outside of really Akron. Very good league, disciplined coaches with disciplined players, and strong players, fit players that are able to compete with you all the time. Where in the Big East we had, your, for lack of better words, a lot of sexy teams, your Notre Dames, your UConns, your Louisvilles, programs that, big budget programs, great facilities and top players, and the games were a little bit more attractive. And I think what we had to learn to do in the MAC was probably grind out a few more results than we were typically used to having to do in the Big East.
Could it help then, talking to some of these other guys that say, hey, we got a really young team, a lot of freshmen and sophomores will be relied upon. Does that maybe help that you can mold these guys a little bit more to what it is? And they don't know, they don't have a past that they would necessarily fall back on. Yeah. This is all what they know now.
Yeah, and the interesting part about that, and it's a good point, is that most of these guys that we played last year were young players. And we had a pretty big senior class, but that said, we had a couple games this year where we started 6 or 7 freshmen. So their indoctrination was kind of by fire, for a lack of better words and a better way to put it. And they don't know too different. The Andy Bevins and Craig Stevenses and those guys only got to play 1 year in the Big East, and so it's probably more of an adjustment for us as a staff, and getting to know some of our opponents a little bit better than it was for the players. But I think these guys that they don't know any better and know any different. So absolutely. But I think no matter what we were able to do a little bit better this year was manipulate our non-conference schedule because we had more time. And so, there's only 6 conference games, and the rest are all non-conference. So we're going to be able to have a better preparation for the MAC season than we were able to have last year.
The players mentioned heading into that first year in the MAC that there were a couple big heads amongst the team. Do you think that first season, kind of leveled the heads heading into this one?
I think a lot of people maybe characterize a 9-6-2 season as disappointing. I think we were disappointed. I don't think it was a disappointing season. More years than not, we're an NCAA tournament bid team with 9 wins because of our strength of schedule. I think what we had last year was probably a bit of an ego, whereas every year we typically have a chip on our shoulder. The 6 years that I've been here in the Big East, we were top 2 or 3 in the conference in wins over that 6-year time period. But it was always with a chip on our shoulder because nobody ever gave us the respect that we probably deserved. Now going into a league that I think a lot of our guys perceived as a weaker league, I think it was, okay, we can beat Notre Dame, we can beat UConn, we can beat Penn State, we can beat all these teams. We're not going to have any problems, with the Bowling Greens and the Buffaloes of the world. And lo and behold, we had problems. And so I think it was a big, humbling experience for a lot of the guys. But that being said, a lot of those guys have moved on and graduated. And it's a young group that has learned from that experience and knows how to probably take it on a little bit better heading into this year.
You got something new this year. You guys are going to Arizona the next couple days. What was your thought process in thinking of something like that?
Heat and elevation. I think the average next week might be like 107, or this week. Though people out in the West like to describe it as a dry heat, whatever that means. Hot is hot. No. I wanted to get them out of their comfort zones, much like going to northern Illinois, and there's a 30-mile-an-hour wind in your face and in your back for 90 minutes, much like going out to Bowling Green, and it's a small facility, and there may only be 500-600 people there, but it makes us a little uncomfortable because we play better when there's 5,000 than when there's 500. So the whole purpose was to kind of get them out of their comfort zones and really challenge them mentally and physically. Also, getting out of Morgantown. It's a popular weekend for the students coming back that like to enjoy themselves before school starts. And though they like to enjoy themselves while school's in session here, think it for us was going to be, let's get away for a little bit. We're going to be here plenty. Got 12, 13 home games this year, and let's just go on the road, work out some kinks, and then come back hopefully ready and energized for Ohio State.
You had one of those 12 or 13 home games, Akron coming to town, and an opportunity to right some wrongs from last year, especially with that one. What do you hope from a game like that? And is it one of those things that you kind of got to make sure that your players don't get too excited about it, or do you want them to have that circle it on the calendar kind of thing?
Well, I guess it's cliche, the whole one game at a time. I've got about 7 or 8 really dangerous games before we even get to Akron. Our schedule is very, very ambitious, to say the least, but designed that way, so by the time we get to Akron, it's not going to be as big of a deal. And so, though that game will likely go a long way towards deciding who the MAC regular season champion is going to be, we will have faced 5 or 6 teams that will challenge us in the same fashion that Akron's going to challenge us by then. So last year we had so few opportunities to do the same and manipulate the schedule just because of the whole conference change and the way things were working. But by the time we see Akron, we will already have seen Penn State, we'll already have seen Michigan, St. John's, the defending national champion Indiana, the defending runner-up Georgetown. So I think we got a lot of games that are going to be circled even well before we get there, but certainly it's a big game. But we certainly have a lot of work to do before we even think about those guys.